Welcome to today's program of Free to Fly. I'm certain that the Lord has a special message for each of you today. I believe that every single one of us at some stage in our lives have felt or have known what it is like to feel like a nobody, to feel as if we don't really amount to anything significant, to feel left out, rejected maybe by people who are close to us, or even perhaps the feeling that we've not really contributed anything significant to society. And that is perhaps an awful feeling to have. And it may be that we have actually achieved much in life, and maybe we've reached the top at this point. But sometimes, even without our realizing it, there are certain things that perhaps have happened or taken place in the past, especially with regard to how people have the words people have spoken over us, or our circumstances that have put in our minds certain negative imprints of who we really are. Even out there in the world, there have been many people who, for all intents and purposes, would have been considered useless, if I may say it that way. Nevertheless, subsequently, at some point in their lives, they have contributed in a dramatic way towards society. For example, if we consider Albert Einstein, at this point we think of him as a genius. But how many of us knew that until the age of 4, Albert Einstein could not speak? Until he was 7 years, he could never read. And everyone considered him to be mentally handicapped. Yet, we are all aware of the significant contribution he has made. We consider him to be a genius. Similarly, Thomas Edison, in his early years, teachers told Edison that he was too stupid to learn anything. He was fired from his first 2 jobs for not being productive enough. And we all know that he too contributed significantly by inventing the light bulb, without which we cannot imagine life. But even before he did that, he failed 1,000 times. I believe that these people, they were rejected by society and they were considered to be useless. Nevertheless, there was something within them, and they had something to contribute, and they did make a difference. Similarly, we know of a story even in the Bible. We may not have considered it to be so, but whether we realize it or not, I believe that even in David, King David's life, he did experience rejection. Shall we turn in our Bibles to 1 Samuel chapter 16 and read from verses 1 to 13. 1 Samuel 16 verses 1 to 13. Now the Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided myself a king among his sons." And Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears it, he will kill me." But the Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, 'I have come to sacrifice to the Lord.' Then invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. You shall anoint for me the one I name to you." So Samuel did what the Lord said and went to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, "Do you come peaceably?" And he said, "Peaceably. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice." Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. So it was, when they came, that he looked at Eliab and said, "Surely the Lord's anointed is before me." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." So Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Then Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Thus Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. And Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord has not chosen these." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Are all the young men here?" Then he said, "There remains yet the youngest, and there he is keeping the sheep." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Send and bring him, for we will not sit down till he comes here." So he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, with bright eyes, and good looking. And the Lord said, "Arise, anoint him, for this is the one." Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel arose and went to Ramah. The title of the message I would like to share with each of you today is "Through the Eyes of Your Maker." Through the eyes of your Maker. As we read, this was a historic moment in the nation of Israel. Samuel had gone to the town of Bethlehem because God had instructed him to anoint a king, to anoint the king of Israel. And I believe that Jesse understood that this was a significant event. It was not a common thing to see Samuel coming to their town. And therefore they knew that when he came, that meant there was something important. Perhaps the Lord had directed him to do something. Not only that, Samuel told Jesse, "Bring your sons and come for the sacrifice." And Jesse probably understood that there was certainly something significant about this invitation. And therefore he got his sons prepared, they consecrated themselves, and they went for the sacrifice. Yet there was something important that we need to realize, and that was that even though Jesse had ensured that his 7 sons were there, his last son, the 8th son, David, was left out. He was there watching over the sheep. Now this was a significant moment, not only in the nation of Israel, it was also a significant moment in the family of Jesse. Yet, he, for some reason, decided that inviting David for this sacrifice was not really important. He was out there looking after sheep. He's just a little boy, really not important enough to be even invited for this. Let him continue to look after the sheep. We don't really need him. And I understand that David, when he actually came to know what really took place, I'm sure he would have felt rejected. He would have felt left out. If you and I were in that situation, knowing that this was a significant event and we were left out, we would have certainly felt rejected. Similarly, I'm certain that many of us in our lives at some point we have understood and we know what it feels like to seem insignificant, to seem that as though we are not important enough to be included in something, to feel as though we cannot contribute to society, whether we are there or not really makes no difference. And sometimes we feel like we are just useless. We are a waste of space. And very often, sadly, such feelings are based on what others have either said or done to us. It is based on our circumstances. It is very possible that perhaps when you were young, you remember maybe what your parents have said to you. Maybe that they have compared you with your siblings and said, you are not like this one. You are not like your brother. Look at what he has achieved. You will never amount to anything. You are just useless. It's a waste of money for me to even send you to school. And perhaps we remember the negative words our parents have spoken over us, maybe regarding our appearance, regarding so many things that we think that it really doesn't affect us. But if we really are honest with ourselves today, we might understand that somewhere deep down in our hearts, it is still there. It may be even what our teachers have spoken over us. Maybe they've told us negative words. You will never amount to anything. You are too dumb to even learn anything. I can't waste my time on you. It may be even rejection that we may have experienced by our children. And that could be sometimes awful to even consider that a child to whom you've invested your whole life, you've given of yourself, is now turning back and saying, I don't want you in my life, I hate you. Or it may be a rejection, or maybe rejection by a spouse. And perhaps you've invested so much into this relationship, into this marriage, only to find that your spouse is unfaithful or perhaps even indifferent towards your existence. Whether you are there or not makes no difference. Or you are made to feel that way. Or it may be even in your career. Perhaps, as far as your boss is concerned, whether you are there or not really doesn't make a difference. He does not see any potential in you. You may be working hard, you may be trying your level best. Nevertheless, it is not recognized, and you feel as though you amount to nothing. It may be even that you have lost your job and you feel, I am insignificant. Obviously, I lost my job because there's nothing good in me. It is possible that we may have experienced rejection even by our friends, by our peers, where we are made to feel that as though we don't really fit in. It may be in a group of friends and we are meant to feel, oh, you're not really, you don't really fit in with us. Or it may be, in many ways, I believe that we have experienced rejection, or we know what it feels like to be a nobody. Someone who doesn't really make much of a difference. But the question is, how do we deal with situations like that? Very often we just cover it up and try to project an image of being totally in control. There is no problem. But let's be honest with ourselves today. How do you see yourself? How do you think that it really has never affected you, what anyone else has said or done to you, or your circumstances? The thing is, our lives revolve around what other people have to say about us. Generally, our lives revolve around what they think about us. But does it really matter? For example, if you take a household appliance, whether it is useful or not would depend on the purpose for which it was made. And therefore, for example, if I bought myself an iron, and I decided and I understood that when you put the switch on, there is heat that comes, but I think, no, I don't need to, it's not only to iron clothes, I can even fry an egg with this on this iron, because there is heat, so I can fry an egg. Now, my perception of it, and I may attempt to fry an egg and I would think, oh no, this is an absolute flop, it's not come out properly, this is a useless appliance, and get rid of it. But what I really need to do is figure out the purpose of this iron. The purpose of the iron was never to fry an egg, it was never to cook, it was to iron clothes. And similarly, we let other people define who we are, and our lives revolve around what they have to say, and therefore they might put us in a box and say, this is what you're supposed to do, and that is not what you're doing, and therefore you are useless. But have we ever stopped to consider that as much as what matters is who manufactured the iron and the purpose of the iron, and in relation to that, whether it is useful, as much as we need to consider that, we need to consider who made us.